The hardest part of going to the moon isn't the launch, the vacuum, or even the 500,000 miles of absolutely nothing in between. It's the return. Coming back from the moon means hitting Earth's atmosphere at roughly 11 kilometers per second, fast enough that the air itself can't get out of the way in time and turns into plasma. Four astronauts just did that. On purpose. And they're completely fine. Artemis 2 was NASA's first crewed mission to cislunar space since 1972. Four astronauts Reid Wiseman, Victor Glover, Christina Koch, and Canadian astronaut Jeremy Hansen flew the Orion capsule on a free-return trajectory around the moon. No landing. Just a 10-day journey to prove that the hardware, the life support, and the humans inside could survive deep space and come home in one piece. The free-return trajectory is an elegant trick borrowed directly from physics. Think of it like rolling a marble at exactly the right angle across a curved table. The moon's gravity does all the steering for free. The crew swung closer to the lunar surface than any human had since Apollo 17, looking down at a landscape that hasn't changed meaningfully in 3 billion years and almost certainly didn't notice them. Then comes the hard part. Re-entry. The Orion capsule's heat shield, made of a material called avcoat, works on the same principle as sacrificial armor. It ablates, controlled burning that carries heat away from the capsule instead of into it. The shield reaches around 2,760 degrees Celsius. For context, that's hotter than the surface of most stars. The astronauts inside experienced roughly 30 seconds of complete radio blackout, and presumably some elevated heart rates. Splashdown happened in the Pacific Ocean, which sounds anticlimactic until you realize it's actually the optimal engineering choice. Water decelerates a capsule more gently than solid ground, distributes the impact force across the hull, and conveniently keeps the whole thing afloat while recovery teams motor over. The USS San Diego was waiting. The capsule hit the water. Everyone inside still had all their bones. The last time humans came home from the moon was December 1972. Apollo 17. Gene Cernan stepped off the lunar surface, climbed into the ascent stage, and that was essentially it for crewed deep space travel for over half a century. Not because we forgot how. Because we chose other priorities. Artemis 2 is the first hard evidence in 50 years that those priorities have genuinely, irreversibly shifted. What Artemis 2 actually proved isn't the rocket or the capsule, those flew without crew on Artemis I. What it proved is that humans can tolerate the radiation environment, the isolation, and the physiological stresses of cislunar space in this specific vehicle. That data feeds directly into Artemis 3, which will put people on the lunar surface for the first time since Cernan left his bootprints there. Here's what the breathless coverage tends to skip about splashdowns: every successful return compresses the psychological distance to the next departure. Artemis 2 didn't just bring 4 people home. It recalibrated what possible means in an era when space travel feels routine at low Earth orbit and mythological everywhere beyond it. The moon just became the commute. Mars is still the destination, but now, finally, the road exists. Strip away the spectacle and here's what actually happened. For humans rode a controlled explosion into deep space, let the moon's gravity steer them home, survived a plasma fireball, and splashed down in the Pacific while a Navy ship waited with coffee. That chain, from launch to recovery, hadn't worked with people inside it since 1972. Now it has. The hardware is real, the data is real, the physiological baseline for cislunar survival is real. Artemis 2 didn't promise the moon. It proved the road to it is open. What strikes us isn't the mission, it's the 52-year gap before it. We landed on the moon 6 times, planted flags, drove rovers, hit golf balls, and then collectively decided it could wait. That wasn't a failure of engineering. It was a choice. Artemis 2 is evidence that the choice has flipped, but choices can flip back. Budgets get cut, administrations change, priorities drift. The bootprints Gene Cernan left in 1972 are still there, perfectly preserved in the lunar dust, waiting. So here's what we keep coming back to: if we walked away once at the height of our capability and confidence, what exactly are we trusting that will be different this time?